Hello and welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art. Today I want to talk about the much promised, often delayed Ray Bradbury Short Story Club. Let's address the dandelion wine in the room here. I have had great plans to get that going, and I have just had one problem after another come up to delay it. Things are ready to go now. I know better about what I want it to be and what I'm going to be doing, so I've got a couple of Ray Bradbury related news to share with you for this video. So this will be just a quick update. First of all, what stories we'll be reading are the stories that were published in Bradbury's very first collection called Dark Carnival. I decided to go ahead and just start with the beginning with his first published work. Now, if you happen to have a copy of Dark Carnival, I'm very jealous because that's a very rare Bradburian collection. His first one, obviously, they didn't publish a lot, so you can find them on eBay, places like that, for hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars now. And I can't even find any reprinting of it. And I believe the October Country is basically a reissue of Dark Carnival, but with some stories taken out, some new ones added, and the order is all mixed up. But thanks to Google and Wikipedia, we do know what stories were in that first collection. So I will have all those stories linked below or to my announcement post. Ignore the dates if I've got the wrong dates on there. I believe so. The first story I'll be talking about this month is Homecoming. That's the first story in Dark Carnival. It's one of his classic, well-known stories. I've talked about it and have teased it in the past that we're going to talk about it. I just haven't had the time to do it. Well, this month it's done. It's already uploaded. It's ready to go. So it will be out at the end of this month. Fingers crossed. So if you want to read along with me and what stories I'll be talking about, go ahead and pick up Homecoming by Ray Bradbury. You can find it in many of his collections. I'm sure it's available online even. That it shouldn't be a problem for you to find that. Any massive collection of Bradbury stories, like I've got a couple of big ones that have 100 stories or more in them. They'll have this story. This is one of his most well-known stories, and a wonderful publication history behind it too, that he joined forces with Charles Addams and leaves us hints and tantalizing of what could have been if those two had been able to get worked together more than just this one-time event. So we'll be talking about Homecoming. The video will come out at the end of May. And then the other thing I want to announce is a new book I'll be reading for a deep dive slow read book club. I got to really work at coming up with better names. So as you recall, last year I did a slow read of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. We read it in serial publication order, but then I tried reading Emma at just whatever pace I wanted to, and to have a video updating whatever I happen to read, and that wasn't working either. But I think really the best way that worked for me was what I first did. So I'm going to go back to doing that. I invite you to read with me Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And we're going to take about 12 weeks to get through it. So we're going to go at a slow pace, really savor the text, explore the story and the commentary that Bradbury is bringing out. Now, it's not that long of a novel, and the edition I'm going to be reading from is the 60th anniversary edition, which you can still find widely available online. And I would recommend this one. It was recommended to me as, if you're going to have a copy, if you're a hardcore Bradburian, this is the definitive copy to get, because not only does it have an introduction by Neil Gaiman in it, there's a whole giant section in the back of articles and letters and different scholarly thoughts about the impact of Fahrenheit 451. And so what I will be doing is not just reading the story, but we'll also cover those letters and essays that are contained in this particular edition. So I'm being very edition specific for this read along, because I want to explore some of what people have written about Fahrenheit 451, not just the story itself. But I feel like this is a very timely book for us to be reading when censorship seems to be a very big news item right now. Some people are not understanding what it is. Some are. Some voices are being silenced that shouldn't be, and others are being promoted that perhaps shouldn't be. Books are being reissued and re-edited, like Roald Dahl famously, or infamously, I should say, that he's had some of his books edited. I know in the movie, the new Little Mermaid remake, a couple of the lines from a few of the songs have been changed to try to be a little less offensive in what it says, and I know some people had a problem with that. So what I'm hoping is this book will help us discuss things like censorship, and is there a good time for that? Things like banning books. Should we do that? Should we not? These are the big issues that this book addresses, and I think it's super incredibly important right now to be talking about that. I know that means that there's some pretty ugly things that have been written in the past, and some fairly hurtful things that have been written in the past. But I think it's important for us to remember those things and let them teach us how to be better and how to do better and speak better in the future. And that doesn't mean I enjoy reading them. In fact, there are some authors whose writings have not aged well at all. And I just self-censor is what I call it. That I just choose, I'm not going to read that book anymore because I don't like the way that author writes or portrays these characters. One is actually an author very near and dear to my heart. For instance, Charles Dickens, his book Oliver Twist has a very awful caricature of a Jewish character in it that really makes that book very hard to read and enjoy. What gets me through it is knowing, there are it has good literary value to it, even if it isn't, it's hard for us to measure and hold a book that was written 200 years ago to today's standards. 200 years from now, there's going to be books that are written, books that are being written today might contain some offensive material in it that we just aren't aware of yet. As a society, we're going to grow and we're going to learn and we're going to do better at that. And that's the key, I think, is when presented with that information and new information, is that we don't just ignore it, but we change, we think about it, and we realize that, yes, okay, this probably wasn't the best way to think of this. Let's change that. Let's do better. And Dickens certainly followed that pattern. And that's why it's a story I've mentioned before here on this channel, is the story of a Jewish woman who wrote to Dickens several letters pointing out his the Jewish stereotypes that he and many others like him wrote about at that time, and said how it was offensive and how it hurt her, all those things. And he listened and he changed, and he went back and edited some of his older works to be less offensive towards those stereotypes, which I think is remarkable. And that's where I feel like censorship is quote unquote okay, when it's the author censoring his or her own work. I don't have a problem with that necessarily, because that's their work, and if they want it to change it to better reflect their evolving points of view, I mean, whether we like it or not, I think that's their right. That's their story. But anyway, those are just some introductory thoughts I have. But I would really encourage you to pick up this copy of Fahrenheit 451. Now, you don't have to if you have one at home, or get one from the library that's a different edition. That's okay. I will give an estimated reading plan of how we'll cover this. The story itself, I think, will take only about 7 or 8 weeks. I think I divided that up. And then about a month of it, we'll be discussing some of the essays and writings. So I will very likely be discussing what's written in here well enough that if you don't have this copy, you should still be able to follow along my train of thought in the conversation. So what I'll do is probably present what the article or essay is saying about Fahrenheit 451 and then discuss what I think about their opinion of it, something like that. But this is one of my all-time favorite books. It's a powerful story, and I'm really looking forward to doing a slow deep dive read with anyone who'd like to read along with me. Or if you've read it enough times, you could just engage in the discussion with us without actually reading it. Just please feel free to engage in the conversation. I really enjoyed discussing Great Expectations at length. And some of you were very much with me through the whole trip, and that made it such a worthwhile adventure. So I would like to do more of those kinds of videos on my channel. And I would like to kind of bounce between Victorian classics and maybe modern classics. I consider this a modern classic, or at least a 20th century classic. I guess we're in the 21st century now. That's weird. Anyway, all that to say, I'm really looking forward to reading Fahrenheit 451 with you. So if you're able to get the 60th anniversary edition, although I think the book is about 70 years old now, I'll have to check for sure. I think this will be a great and fun trip through Bradbury's masterpiece. The first video I plan to have out will start off our reading. I'll just introduce the story more fully, the background to it, and I will probably talk about the introduction written by Neil Gaiman in that video as well. I haven't read that intro yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Neil Gaiman is such a wonderful speaker on such things. All right, that'll be it for today. Sorry, my camera just died, right? I was almost done, and then the camera died. All right, that's all I have for today. Until next time, everyone, take care and happy reading.